Good morning. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the alterations I've done to my Luna pants from Made by Ray. So this is the sewing pattern that I'm working on right now. No affiliation, yada yada. Just got this from my local sewing store who's doing a sew along of this pattern. These are woven joggers. And in my test I ended up going up a size because I felt that the upper hip, that is this section right here, was a little bit too snug in the size that I had chosen. Now, it could have been the test fabric that I was using and some, errors and things in my initial testing, which is one of the reasons why you always do that muslin, could have made that a little tighter. But I felt like even with that, I needed a little bit of extra room. And going up a size is no big deal because after all, it doesn't matter what size you are. You're the size you are, right? It doesn't matter. No one's going to put a label on the inside. You are you in comfortable, well-fitting clothes. So I went up a size to get a little bit more room right in this section here. I ended up with a little bit of extra room, I think, in here that I might have to take out later, but we'll talk about that later. So the alterations that I ended up making, because I made a muslin, a traditional white muslin for my second muslin, the alterations I ended up making were really to the front rise. And even though this has a lowered front rise with a contour waistband, I needed an even further lower rise. So this front comes up just a smidge below my belly button, maybe just right at my belly button, maybe even just like barely covering my belly button. And obviously having an extra inch in there was going to bring it up too high. The back comes up right at the small of my back, like the tiny lower part of my back that's not quite in the middle of my back, but it's a little bit lowered. So I felt this was comfortable and I didn't need to add anything here. But this is what I did. You can see that I pinched it out. So there's no pinch out at the side seam, but it ends up being pinched out across the front. And I really just put this muslin on and pinned it where all the excess gap was, right? And that's about right in the middle of the crotch seam, and it ended up at this slight angle. And then I also tested out my wider waistband because I'm going to use the thicker elastic and I'm going to stitch across the top of it when I'm done. And I really like that look. I think it just held me in a little bit better, and I think with the stitching on the top it's going to give a really nice jogger look. So those are my two basic alterations to my muslin that I made. And I translated that into this alteration on the tissue. So what I did on the front pattern piece is right about in the middle, I cut this piece, but I didn't cut all the way through. You can see it's not cut here. So it didn't cut all the way through. And then that allowed me to pivot this top part down, taking out the inch of pattern that I needed in the front. And this is going to become my new pattern piece. Okay, I'm not going to make any more changes to the facing other than making it wider because that worked out perfectly for me. So I'm going to make the facing wider, and then I just simply pinch this out. Now, if you make a dramatic alteration, you might need to do what's called truing this seam, because this seam should really be vertical. Okay, so you may need to true this seam. That is, trim off a little bit or draw a line between 2 points on this to be able to get this to be true. But this is pretty straight, actually, and how this appears. So those are my alterations that I did on my muslin that I transferred to my tissue. Now I'm ready to cut out my final. Now today, of course, it's cold and rainy and typical March, and I'm under no illusions that it's not going to be like this even into April, because we do get some cold weather where I live. So one of the things that I like to do is have my sort of next project out. So in addition to the Luna pants, I said, okay, well, there's a couple things I can make that will go with it next. One of them might be an Ogden cami and a really nice voile, or even my free poncho kimono top in a print rayon, in a floral print rayon. But it's a little bit chilly right now, so I said, you know what, let me go see what else I have in my stash. And I purchased at my local fabric store this past winter what I would like to call this digital sweater knit. And I bought enough that I could make a dress, but I really didn't wear winter dresses at all this year. And maybe it was just because I just didn't go anywhere, but I just didn't really wear a winter dress. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a wide bateau funnel neck top that has princess seaming and inseam pockets from a pattern company called Naughty Bobbin Patterns out of California. They have this top called the La Magève, which is very, very fancy French, and just really beautiful pattern design. So I've seen some great renditions in fleece and like a sweatery knit. So I'm going to do that, and as you can see, it's got that same mint green in it. Yeah, this is a little bit of a winter pattern, but you know what? I think it'll be good for this transition season between very early spring and actual spring, or fool's spring and actual spring that we're getting, and it'll look really nice with my mint green tencel challis. So that's what I'm working on for the Luna Pant sew along. You can get more details, including photos of my muslin and how I put it together, at paradise-graphic.com, or you can Google Sew Paradise or type in sewparadise.com and it should redirect you. So both of those things get to my sewing blog, so you can check it out and see how I'm doing on my pants. My goal is to finish them this week so that I can work on my next project, which is a little sweater, before I head out on a very early weather spring break. So while it's not going to be an early spring break, it'll be Easter week, and we're going to be driving and doing a lot of outdoor activities. I want to be able to have things that are going to keep me warm, because we are going to be doing all outdoor activities. We are not indoor people, we are outdoor people. So we're going to be doing everything outdoors, and I want to be cozy and stylish on my trip.